India faces a growing need to fix its basic health concerns, especially in primary healthcare. In fact, a casual visit to a primary healthcare center in some random village will tell you how neglected healthcare in India is. In this session, we will look into some of the fundamental healthcare challenges in India and how CSR can be a catalyst to provide affordable, scalable, and inclusive healthcare models. We will also learn more about the strategies that can be devised to involve the different actors in the healthcare ecosystem, all striving towards one goal. But before I introduce our panel, let me quickly remind you that we have a panel discussion running concurrently in Track A on impact investing for social sector funding, evidences, and experiences. Heading forward, I invite our esteemed panelists for the plenary session. Our moderator, Ms. Mamta Carroll, Vice President and Regional Director, Asia Smile Train. Mamta joined Smile Train in 2006, managing the largest program area in India. Currently, she manages South Asia, Southeast Asia, and MENA, comprising 19 countries. These are intricate, dissimilar, and complex geographies with diverse socio-economic and cultural dynamics. Mamta has led Smile Train's Asia team in extending both reach and impact, besides creating sustainable programs, strategic partnerships, and a deeper, broader integration of Smile Train's engagements with multiple stakeholders. Uh, Her earlier appointments have been with the United Nations Environmental Programme in Africa and tenure at New Delhi with the Center for Science and Environment. Her corporate experience has been with Amway India and Motorola Incorporated. For more than 25 years, she has worked at the intersection of community development, public diplomacy, CSR, corporate, and brand communications, besides government affairs. Our panel includes Shri Hira Lal, IAS, Additional Mission Director, National Health Mission UP. Dr. Hira Lal, an IAS officer having rich experience of 26 years, is a civil servant and is currently posted as Additional Mission Director for the National Health Mission, Uttar Pradesh, and Additional Project Director in UP, State AIDS Control Society. He has served in various departments in different capacities. His last posting was District Magistrate, Banda, where he had undertaken an array of initiatives and introduced many low-cost innovations. Mr. Pankaj Ballabh, Vice President CSR, Bajaj Auto Limited. Pankaj has spent nearly 25 years working on issues of development, corporate responsibility, and sustainability. This period has been evenly divided between grassroots development organizations and large MNCs. He has worked with extremely disadvantaged rural communities, working with contested resources and under conditions of extreme stresses, as well as with migrants and displaced communities. His second decade has been spent in corporate environment, managing corporate responsibility and sustainable development portfolios for three large multinationals. In these roles, he has led the transition to an impact and risk-centric approach and also led the influencing outreach to impact a much wider stakeholder set. One key area of his work has been development of robust due diligence mechanisms around anti-bribery and corruption. His specialities include CSR, environmental and social risk assessment, social performance, sustainable development, stakeholder management, crisis communications, social tension, and social media, among others. Next, we have Mr. Atul Singh, Vice President CSR, Emami Limited. Atul Singh is a senior management professional and a new age CSR thought leader with over 30 years of rich national and international experience working with various organizations in Australia, India, and Bangladesh. He is currently the Vice President CSR at Emami Limited, heading the CSR and sustainability initiatives for the Emami Group. In his previous role, he was Vice President at Piramal Swasthya, managing their pan-India operations for the implementation of public-private partnership projects working with 12 state governments in India. He has also got vast experience and expertise managing and implementing innovative and technology-driven education and skill development projects, working with Z Education Group. He is also a mentor of various social sector startups and social entrepreneurs, helping some of the innovative startup incubators in India. In recognition of the positive impact on the society through his innovative and sustainable CSR practices, Mr. Singh has been awarded the CSR Leader of the Year award during the India International CSR and Impact Awards 2020. Last but not the least, we have with us Ms. Urvashi Prasad, Senior Policy Specialist at Niti Aayog. Urvashi has extensive experience in health, nutrition, sanitation, gender, and public policy. Over the last 4 years, Urvashi has been working in public policy as a public policy specialist in the office of the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, which is the premier policy think tank of the Indian government. She is currently part of the core team supporting the work of Government of India's Empowered Group 1 for managing the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Urvashi is a member of the task force for overseeing the implementation of sustainable development goals in India and co-authored India's first voluntary national review presented at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in 2017. She is a member of the World Economic Forum's Expert Network and an alumnus of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. It is an honor to have all of you here with us. I'd hand over the session to our moderator, Ms. Mamta Carroll.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction to all my panelists, and I welcome you all. And we begin today's deliberations. Once again, a very warm hello to everyone. I'm both privileged and delighted to welcome a very distinguished panel comprising Dr. Hira Lal and Dr. Ms. Urvashi Prasad, Mr. Pankaj Vallabh, and Mr. Atul Singh. We're fortunate to have such a distinguished and very learned panel. I will just give you a little background and then we set the ball rolling. The Prime Minister's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat can only be realized by a Swasth Bharat. This requires many things, key among which are national effort between the government, the healthcare sector, and the corporates. It also needs critical health ecosystem enablers of data integration and standardization. With strengthening healthcare infrastructure and service delivery, technological empowerment and digitization will enable more effective and efficient use of existing facilities. Technology, therefore, has a major role in bridging gaps that exist in our healthcare system. But how do we balance leveraging technology with data privacy concerns in such an exposed cyber environment? People are largely unaware of health aspects per se. Why is the level of health awareness low in the Indian population? The answers may lie in low accent on education within the healthcare system and therefore low priority for health. Moving on, aspects of availability, supply, and utilization of healthcare services are factors in determining access. Physical reach is also one of the basic factors of access, defined as the ability to enter a healthcare facility within 5 kilometers from the place of work or residence. Even if the healthcare facility is physically accessible, what is the quality of care that is offered at these centers? Is that care continuously available? While the National Health Mission has done much to improve the infrastructure in the government-run healthcare system, many of the primary healthcare centers lack basic infrastructural facilities. We must therefore, via this session, and you will see all my co-panelists talking about it, we must encourage discussion on the challenges of access to healthcare and identify and analyze barriers to access in the financial, geographic, social, and system-related domains before we address solutions to quality healthcare. Healthcare delivery should include arguably the most central of characters involved, the human workforce. Do we have adequate number of personnel? Are they appropriately trained? Are they equitably deployed? Is their morale in delivering the service reasonably high? India has roughly 20 health workers per 10,000 population. with allopathic doctors comprising approximately 31% of the workforce, nurses and midwives approximately 30%, pharmacists 11%, Ayush practitioners 9%, and the others probably contribute to about 9% additionally. The workforce is again not distributed optimally, with most preferring to work in the areas where infrastructure and facilities for family life and growth are higher. The private sector accounts for most of the health expenditures in the country. The state-run health sector is still the only option for the rural and semi-urban areas of the country. Considering that the private sector is the major player in the healthcare service delivery, there have been many programs aiming to harness the private expertise to provide public healthcare services. The latest, as all of you all know, is the Government of India's Ayushman Bharat. So therefore, we hope to learn on these and other aspects during our session on building an inclusive Indian healthcare systems and models in India. I now invite Ms. Prasad to share her views on driving policies for sustainable, inclusive healthcare models, including healthcare financing.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. I would, Ms. Prasad, before you start, I would just like to kind of start off by asking you two very broad questions, and then you can steer your discussion accordingly. So what are the key aspects which must be considered or prioritized for developing successful healthcare models and beneficial health policies for our country? That's one. And then what is the role of healthcare expenditure and insurance to to basically drive inclusivity and affordability in healthcare?
Right. So I'll really talk about it in three parts.
Sure.
The first one, I would talk about the public healthcare and the preventive healthcare, also the primary healthcare, which comes in here. And here, of course, the primary responsibility is very much of the government in terms of making sure that people have access to these services. Because a lot of them are really in the realm of public goods, and that's why the government has to play a very important role here. Now, of course, expenditure needs to be ramped up significantly, and there is, of course, a commitment both at the central level as well as at the state level, because what we have to understand in India is that it's not just the center, but actually the state governments, which play a very big role, both in terms of healthcare expenditure as well as how that money is spent. So both center and state really need to fulfill their commitment to ramp up spending on health, and a large share of that spending must go towards public and primary healthcare, because there's no use increasing money in health but spending most of that on hospitals or curative care. We've historically been a very cure-focused health system. We do need to move towards prevention and wellness, because we have too large a population, and we cannot manage if we just keep expecting people to be treated in hospitals. That will be simply unsustainable. So that element, I think the government obviously needs to do a lot. You mentioned Ayushman Bharat. We've had the health and wellness centers which have been launched recently, but it's very important that these centers are different from our primary health centers, which we've had all these years. And as you mentioned, that in many areas these centers are not even delivering the services that they are supposed to. So I think it's important that these centers are not just different in terms of physical infrastructure, but more in terms of the quality of service they deliver. And here I think the collaboration with the private sector can play a big role, because the private sector can bring in efficiency, can bring in technology use, can also help with the skilling and the training of the manpower, to make sure that services such as screening for non-communicable diseases, which is supposed to happen at these centers, actually happens, in true letter and spirit. So I think that is, one element of it. The next element of it is the secondary and tertiary healthcare, or, which is where really the health insurance and the hospital-based care comes up. And of course, we know again under Ayushman Bharat, we have the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is trying to expand access to health insurance. Of course, it covers really only the poorest and the most vulnerable at this stage. There are discussions to expand this scheme possibly to also cover what we call the missing middle, So, these are people who might not be poor, but they might still not have access to health insurance today. So there are definitely discussions along these lines of the scheme being expanded. But here again, we need a public-private collaboration mode, because insurance, is only as good as the services that can buy for you. And right now, most of our hospitals are actually still focused in the large urban centers. So the government needs to, along with the private sector, find a way to ensure that the facilities also reach our tier 2 and tier 3 centers. Because, it's not all about Delhi and Mumbai, and, it's not all about the Apollos and the Medantas of the world, right? So we need to go to much lower levels if this scheme is actually to be effective. So I think this is another avenue where, collaboration and the government working with the private sector can make this insurance coverage much more effective in a real sense. And the third piece is really on the access to medicines and diagnostics. And of course, here again, the government role remains critical in terms of ensuring that everybody has affordable access. But innovation is one area I would emphasize that, not only the government, but also the private sector, if we can put in more money into innovation, especially for diseases which have been quite neglected. Now, COVID has shown us that when we want to invest and when we had the collective will, we can actually come up with vaccines in a very short span of time. And yet we have diseases like tuberculosis, where there is a dearth of innovation. There's absolutely, we are struggling to get new drugs. We are struggling to get new diagnostics. So we also need to put in money into innovation in diseases which affect our populations. And these are really important to us. And TB is one very important example of this. So I think that is the third piece where we need to not only look at investment, but we also need to look at these collaborative models, because the government alone would not be able to achieve the kind of results that we desire.
Yeah, so this leads me to my next question, which is that when you spoke about COVID-19 and the ways that we are kind of responding as a nation, as a country towards it. So what does the future look like for healthcare in India, considering that the lessons learned in 2020 that can be applied to build resilience for 2021?
Yes, so I think one of the most important lessons one would hope is that we will realize the importance of public health. As I said, we are a very cure-focused health system. We always think of health as, okay, when I fall sick, I'll go to a hospital, I'll see a doctor, and that's where the story ends. But we need to think of health as wellness, and not merely the absence of disease, but wellness. And that's really actually the technical definition of health as well. Even if we look at the WHO definition, it's not just merely absence of disease, it's your overall physical, mental, emotional well-being. So I hope that we'll make that shift as a government system, as people. I think we are finally realizing, how important personal hygiene is, how important public hygiene is, basics like hand washing. Unfortunately, we needed a pandemic to teach us many of these things, but I hope that now these lessons will be learned and will stay with us. And the government will also, as I said, I hope make the shift towards public health, towards putting in more money in public health, towards investing in public health cadres. Because, as you mentioned, we have a huge shortage of health personnel, but we need not just doctors and specialists. We also need our nurses, we need nurse practitioners, we need our allied health services. So we really need to ramp up investment in all these areas. And the other piece is technology. Which I think is a positive one, like every crisis brings an opportunity with it. And I think technology is really the opportunity that has come here for us. Of course, telemedicine use has ramped up in a big way in this time, but I think that's scratching the surface. I think we can use technology in healthcare in so many more ways. And again, it's a huge opportunity to partner with startups, to partner with the private sector. We've seen startups come up with some fantastic innovations in these times of crisis, and many of those have been used and adopted by our state governments as well. So I think those would be two big areas that I hope that we'll take forward from here. In terms of where we go forward. One is our focus on public health, the other is using technology to improve access and to improve affordability.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Lastly, I won't let you go before asking this question. So do you think that an increase in healthcare spending in terms of GDP, is that the need of the hour?
Definitely, definitely. I think we have been really lagging behind in terms of spending. As I said, not just the center. Of course, the center has to ramp up spending in a big way, because we've historically just been around 1% of GDP, and that is too low. That is way too low for a country of our size and diversity. So of course the central share has to be ramped up in a big way, and of course that is also stated in our national health policy, etc. But we need to make sure that we follow through on what we are committing to. But also the state governments. There are some state governments which are of course much poorer. And so I think there, I wouldn't really put the onus too much on them. But the state governments which can afford to spend, they be spending at least 8%, of their annual budgets on health. Again, that is a number which is committed in the national health policy. So I think we do need to increase this spending in a big way, both at the central and state levels. And then, of course, there is a huge scope, as I said, for the private sector, for corporates, for others to come in and really supplement this spending, or, fill in the gap areas. There's no substitute for the government in healthcare. And there should never be, a substitute either. But there will always be gaps, given that we are such a large and diverse country. So if the private sector, corporates can really come in, fill in some of these, make the healthcare models more efficient, bring in technology, bring in the kind of skills and efficiencies which are very natural to the private sector, then I think that could be a sort of very good marriage, between how the government and the private sector work.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us a little overview on the way to go for government corporate partnerships. Thank you so much. We move ahead and we invite Mr. Pankaj Vallabh, Vice President CSR Bajaj Auto Limited. He will be talking about bridging the healthcare gap with inclusive CSR.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge thing, right? So I think health has been important to us. I think since the time CSR investments started getting made. I mean, this year we're spending close to 300 crores. More than a half, close to a half this year is going to go into health, because of course, even otherwise we roughly have a third of our funds allocated to health programs. I think there's a structural issue with CSR and health. I mean, health programs, as Dr. Urvashi kind of repeatedly pointed out, actually prevention is the challenge rather than post falling ill the treatment. And programs that focus on prevention are not really CSR friendly, right? They are actually the programs that have those community mobilization, empowerment, awareness. I mean, those are not the words that gel well with a 1 year project focus, verifiable outcomes at the end of 1 year. So there is a challenge with the way the rules are structured. The challenge is the way the rules are being understood and kind of deployed on the ground. So I think more than any other project, I mean, education still gives you verifiable outcomes at the end of the year. Health is one of those really challenging projects where the best projects are those long, open-ended, working, engaging kind of projects. Again, completely agree with Dr. Urvashi that government is and will remain the primary provider of healthcare services, especially for the poor and the ultra poor. I think we didn't talk about civil society, but private sector, yes. I mean, our program largely civil society based. We work with around 250 civil society organizations in delivering the CSR program. Mamta, I seem to have frozen. Is that?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you've given a.
Was I audible in the interim, or was I?
Yes.
Let's start again.
No.
I was audible, right? So let me continue.
You were audible. Yeah, you were audible. And before you get into it, I have a few very fundamental questions that I want to ask you, and then you can take on from there. That I just want to understand that what, in your opinion, are the fundamental healthcare challenges in India, and how CSR can be a catalyst to provide affordable and inclusive healthcare models that can be scaled up, say from pilot to public solutions.
Okay, so I'll kind of try to answer it slightly differently, because my sense is, especially the way we are doing CSR in Bajaj, I think it's a legacy from Jamna Lal ji, where he kind of said many different variants of this dialogue exist, but essentially between Vyapar and Paropkar, there should be a Diwar, right? I mean, you do not do philanthropy with the intent of aiding your business, but in your business, you look for opportunities. But largely, you want to keep the two entities separate. So we're looking at largely supporting civil society, trying to go to the poorest of the poor, the most marginalized. So that's our intent in CSR. And one of the things we see is that government is, of course, as she said, the primary provider, right? I think there's a very large space for civil society engagement with the government healthcare system. And it can be an enabling both in the ways of actually supporting it and also challenging it. And I think a constructive challenge space has not been either explored adequately or appreciated adequately. Because end of the day, all of us, I mean, starting from the PM to any person in this discussion, we are all interested in the best, highest quality healthcare being made available to the most remote locations, to the most impoverished. Challenge, I think, should be an important part of our portfolio, actually ensuring that the services that are required to be provided. And some of the best programs I have seen, we fund something like 25 odd small NGOs in South Rajasthan via CRY. Their primary mechanism to ensure delivery is challenge. And I think that's a very, very, very strong enabler. Is it appreciated by district authorities and by other people? I'll let you guess what the answer is, right? But I think it's an important part to be addressed. The civil society does have a role to play in kind of ensuring positive good behaviors are continued and kind of enabled, and many other things happen, especially ensuring, for instance, women and girl children actually are taken. I mean, Mamta, you experienced that in Smile Train as well, that
absolutely
we need to additionally provide additional support to ensure that the girl child, even if the surgery is free, there needs to be an additional effort done to ensure that the girl child is made a recipient of the free surgery. So I think we require civil society. I mean, and I think that's an important part that CSR can support. I think the other major part is, as you correctly said, innovation. I think there are phenomenal innovations again happening both in private sector, government, and civil society. Like one of the best examples of that is the program by BHS, for instance, in South Rajasthan, where for the last 3 years we have been supporting a technology-led access to appropriate healthcare program in the most remote tribal areas of Udaipur. So I think there are many, and these are all low financial requirement, using something as simple as a WhatsApp call to provide telemedicine rather than a dedicated fancy hardware with satellite connections and all. And also depending on humans. There's no replacement for a sensitive human at the other end of the line. I mean, AI healthcare, I think, is some way off. So I think that again is, I think there are many innovations, they can be scaled up, and since the government system is not amenable to experimentation, I think CSR is well placed to experiment, to play around with ideas, to actually provide models that can be then scaled up. And the scaling up necessarily has to happen within the government. I mean,
true.
Inappropriate to expect the CSR. I mean, CSR is what? 20,000 crores in total, all the companies, everything put together. That's not a substantial amount of money. And if you divide it by 3 or 4, depending on how many sectors get priority, education apparently, according to yesterday's conversation in this forum, has the highest percentage of funding. So we're left with what, 6,000, 7,000 crores for health. I mean, that's nothing. So yeah.
Yeah, and what would you say about the challenges, for example, your CSR projects, or with your CSR projects last year, and how would you do things differently this year?
So I think, and CSR again, I think is very unfortunate reality is we work in and we live in districts which are not even in forget the bottom quartile, they're probably the top 10% of districts in terms of Human Development Index. So I was just looking at data. I mean, Pune alone has more ventilators than 21 states put together. And this is one little city in Maharashtra, right? And so many of our corporates are located there. So I mean, there is a massive distortion, and CSR's ability to understand challenging areas is I think, a major bottleneck. I think we consciously need to move out of our comfort zones and unfortunately, COVID is going to pull us back towards our work area, towards our plant site, towards our cities of where majority of our staff stay, because urban poverty ka prevalence has got very starkly highlighted in this period. I mean, the tribal communities did not start starving 3 months, 4 months into the lockdown. Urban communities, 7th day, there were massive queues. We started a meal program around 40,000 meals. There were massive 2-hour-long queues for each of the feeding centers. So I think there is going to be a kind of a constricting of CSR funding that is likely to happen in the next year or so. And somewhere, I think supporting of innovation should not get killed in this desire for low-hanging fruit like vaccination or strengthening. So, I mean, those are important. They will continue to happen. Hardware at the most PHCs we saw did not even have a bed that could qualify as a hospital bed. Many of them did not even have a bed at all. So there is obviously a large space for involvement, but I think CSR is going to kind of become more self-centered, more industry location-centered. That might be a huge problem for organizations that are currently dependent on CSR funding. And that's another huge challenge that we need to kind of start worrying about.
Right. So this leads me to my last kind of question for you is that as we all know that, your Bajaj Group is involved in various CSR activities for supporting inclusive healthcare. So what are your main projects and what are your expectations from the implementation partners for basically closing the gaps or addressing disparities between for providing inclusive healthcare?
See, I mean, Bajaj Group has this massive involvement with Gandhiji and Jamnalal ji and Gandhiji. I think everybody knows that. And Gandhiji ka talisman is that very famous, iconic statement that you ask yourself that question whether the last person. So I think that is something that is our expectation, that is our guideline, that's a part of our rule book, that you worry about who it benefits and why. So I think that is there in the background. How we structure it in a formal due diligence process, that's a completely different game altogether. The other thing is, again, I mean, if you look at something like as simple as, say, malnutrition, we have got 15 projects all completely different from each other, but largely trying to address the same challenge. So in malnutrition, in addition to those routine activities like kitchen gardens and supplements, we also have something like a gene campaign that is trying to revive the traditional millets. So millet is great, millet is fine, but actually the older millets that had even more nutrition and improve their productivity so that we can sell a part and we can retain a part with the family. And that's one of the malnutrition, anti-malnutrition strategies which we are funding at the moment. So I think, yeah, there is a need to be out of the box, because I think we are funding small projects, we are funding a lot of projects, and we are funding them in ways that enables them to address a challenge in their own way, while adhering to the larger objective of providing support to the most needy.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Pankaj, for detailed curtain raiser on what your group is doing and what the.
And I just forgot to say that we are very happy and proud to be one of your big supporters as well. You are our single largest support in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely, and we look forward to working with you all, for over the next several years now. Yeah, thank you. And I think your expression on need to be out of the box is, yes, it's for all of us. It's for the implementation partners as well as the corporate sector as well as the government. I think all three of us need to work together and in tandem for us to take inclusive healthcare to the next level. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Heera Lal, who is going to talk about the government and social sector partnerships, basically preventive and wellness measures. So one of my panelists, Urvashi, spoke about wellness at all levels, the emotional, mental, psychological, social wellness. And Dr. Heera Lal is an expert on wellness. So I would like to invite him to talk to us about that.
Okay, thank you. I am not expert. I am a generalist. I am an IS officer. But by practice, I have gained some knowledge. Based on that, I will speak upon.
So I will. आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है सर.
Speaker. And one more thing I would like to say, कि in last from March, almost 9 months. In 9 months, all the medical services is paralyzed due to COVID. No services is available. Then what is the result? In absence of medical services, whether we are better right now or we are better earlier to the COVID, what we have learned. This is the point to ponder. This is the point to think. As per me, in as per my personal analysis, we are better during the COVID as compared to.
Why do you say that?
Why? Because, hello?
Hanji, why do you say that? Can you hear me?
I'm saying this because I have talked.
I think
Vehicle is not so. There are so many reasons, but because one main reason, because we switched over to the prevention. That is my topic. That topic is prevention is better than cure. During this 9th month, from March to till December, we took the help of prevention. Try to understand. So what we all are talking about the cure, infrastructure, money is less, money is more, nurse is not there, doctor is. Why we are not thinking that we should make efforts so that people should not get ill? In this direction, I will thank to this present government. They started the concept of wellness center in government sector. And one big example, and we all know, that is Baba Ramdev. He started the concept of wellness through yoga. So in CSR, CSR supplementing the efforts of the government. They are right, they are good in their efforts. I'll thank them, but I would like to advise them, if they divert their effort on prevention rather than cure, their utility of money will increase to a greater extent. One thing. Second thing is that rather than going from what is our effort, we are going from top to bottom, from central government to state government to directorate to commissionary to district to GAM. Ultimately, we will have to work in the villages, in the rural areas where we need the medical health services, that where it is scarcity of services. So one more thing CSR have to follow, that they should start from the villages. There are 3 levels of government: government of India, state government, and village government, headed by a Pradhan. So if they directly go approach their CSR efforts to the Pradhan Gaon level, it will be more effective, and all the leakage, all the difficulties, all the complexities of the management will get removed. So I would like request that CSR should make their effort bottom up rather than top down. Right now we are working on the top down. They should start working bottom up. One thing. Second thing, if they will approach to the district level, they will get more result, more response, and time period required to materialize the things, it will be lesser as compared to currently what approach they are adopting. That is my practical experience. So if CSR is willing to improve the utility of their money, and if they really wish to serve the society, they have to change their focus from cure to prevention in line prevention is better than cure. One thing. Second thing, they should go directly to the village rather than going from top Delhi to Lucknow, Lucknow to commissary, commissary to village. This traveling they should avoid. Directly they should line to the working place. If they will do that, they will have to develop new concept and new mechanism. And as per experience of mine as a district magistrate, I would like to say that as district magistrate in district Bada, I worked with international NGO Water Aid in water directly. I invited them, they directly approached to me, and we did work on water conservation, and we got a huge response, a good result. That is famous. Bada water conservation is famous nationally. So, and they directly approached me, and we got connected, and we started working, and we got with flying colors. Likewise, in malnutrition, UNICEF directly came to me, and we got engaged through MOU, and we started working. Bada Suposhan model is famous there. Likewise, directly at district level, we engage many CSR funds and funds, technical know-how. In different way we engage directly at the lower level in the districts, and we got good results. So I would like to tell two things. First thing is, please directly land to the district, or I mean to say the village where you need to work. First thing. And second thing, prevention is better than cure. Everybody is focusing on the cure. Why? हम ये बीमार लोगों की जो लाइन है, ये जो बीमार होते हैं लाइन में लगते हैं, इनकी लाइन को घटाने में लगे रहते हैं, वो पीछे से लाइन जुड़ती रहती है। हमें वो करना चाहिए कि लोग लाइन में लगना ही बंद कर दे। इस पर हम क्यों नहीं सोच रहे हैं? CSR इस पर क्यों नहीं सोचता है? तो मेरा आप लोगों से ये विनम्र, दिस इज माय प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस एज डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट, एज IAS ऑफिसर एंड एज ए ह्यूमन बीइंग। तो मैं आप लोगों से अनुरोध यही करूं, मैं पिछले 5 साल से इट इज माय पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस कि मैं पिछले 5 साल से बीमार नहीं हुआ। क्यों? मैं सुबह योगा करता हूं, और सुबह मैं 5 बजे उठता हूं। मैंने अपनी हैबिट बदल दी और योगा करता हूं, और जो भी कुछ इस तरह के प्रिवेंटिव मेजर के डॉक्टर्स मिलते हैं और मुझे पता लगता है, तो मैं उन्हें दोस्त बनाता हूं, उनसे सीखता हूं, वो पालन कर, मैं बीमार नहीं होता। तो ये लोगों को हम लोग अवेयर करें इस मुद्दे पर, प्रिवेंशन वाले मुद्दे पे, तो इट विल बी मोर। हम हॉस्पिटल बनाए, नर्स बनाए, डॉक्टर बनाए, सारा तामझाम करें, और फिर भी हम वहीं के वहीं रहते हैं, पिछड़ते चले जा रहे हैं। तो इसमें जैसे योगा हुआ, अभी मैं आपको बताऊं, मुझे रिसेंटली एक, मैं आप लोगों से अनुरोध भी करूंगा जो मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं, मुझे एक डॉक्टर बंसराज मौर्य मिले। आजकल वो, मैं उन्हीं के चक्कर में घूम रहा हूं। उन्होंने कहा, साहब अगर आदमी को वेल रहना है और स्वस्थ रहना है, तो उनका एक कॉन्सेप्ट है नाड़ी रसायन। उनका ये कहना है कि ब्लड अगर आपका जो चाहिए, आपकी बॉडी डिजाइंड है, ऊपर वाला डिजाइन करके बॉडी को भेजता है। उन्होंने मुझे उदाहरण से बताया कि जैसे गाड़ी होती है, कोई डीजल के लिए बनती है, कोई पेट्रोल के लिए, कोई गैस के लिए, ऐसे हमारी भी बॉडी, वो हमें समझाए इस बात का एग्जाम्पल, ऐसे हमारी भी बॉडी होती है, वो डिफरेंट सूट करता है, किसी को सूट, ये जो रसायन है। तो उनका ये कहना है कि अगर हमारी बॉडी की डायग्नोसिस हो जाए और उसमें जो रसायन, जो हम खाना खाते हैं, जो पीते हैं, वो प्रॉपर हो, तो ब्लड ठीक रहेगा। तो उनका कॉन्सेप्ट, हमने उनसे पूछा कि आपको ये कॉन्सेप्ट कहाँ से मिला, तो वो कहते हैं फूड इज मेडिसिन। IIT में एक अग्निहोत्री प्रोफेसर हुआ करते थे, IIT कानपुर में, वो उनके गुरु हैं, और उन्होंने, वो रसायन विज्ञान थे, केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग में, उन्होंने उस अपने रसायन के नॉलेज को, IIT के प्रोफेसर, आप ही इज नो मोर, अब वो स्वर्गवासी हो गए हैं, उनके वो गुरु हैं, वो कह रहे थे, उन्होंने ये बताया कि ये जो केमिकल है, ये जो केमिस्ट्री है, रसायन है, कैसे ह्यूमन बॉडी पे अप्लाई किया जाता है। तो वो बिल्कुल लॉजिकल है और अच्छी चीज है। तो अगर हम लोगों की फूड हैबिट, उनकी बॉडी के अनुसार उनको वो फूड खाने के लिए एडवाइज करें, जैसे मेरी बॉडी का खून एल्कलाइन है और मैं वो चीजें खा रहा था जिससे एल्कलिनिटी बढ़ रही थी, तो मेरे को दिक्कत हो रहा था, इचिंग वगैरह बढ़ रही थी। उन्होंने कहा नहीं, आप इसी की जगह की दूध की जगह पे आप मट्ठा खाइए, दूध से एल्कलिनिटी बढ़ती है और मट्ठा खाइए, घट जाए सिंपली। और मेरा वो 3-4 दिन में वो मेरी बॉडी का रसायन उन्होंने ठीक कर दिया। उनका नाम है नाड़ी रसायन। हम पहले दूध पीते थे, अब उसका मट्ठा बना, हमारी इचिंग उचिंग खत्म हो गई। मेरा ये कहने का सेंस है कि
बहुत
ये
बहुत
इस
धन्यवाद
चीज
सर।
को, हाँ
आपको
जी
मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ जी बताइए।
हाँ जी,
ठीक है।
तो यू नो आई थैंक यू वेरी मच, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने जो मेरे सवाल थे ऑन प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ केयर ऑन वेलनेस, वो आपने यू हैव आंसर्ड देम, आपने सारे सवालों के जवाब दिए और बड़े विस्तार से। आई थिंक हमारे जितने भी श्रोतागण हैं आज उनको बहुत लाभ हुआ होगा आपकी the basic tweak of the CSR, which should focus on preventive and not curative in that sense. And I'm sure not only the corporates, I think the government and everybody, we are going to talk about this in detail, and we are going to focus forthcoming up अगले साल इस panel पे देखेंगे तो I think there will be we will talk more about wellness, and we will have more wellness programs as compared to what we have today. So I think that's the way to go. And thank you very much for sharing your experience and your expertise in, in doing the work that you are doing in Banda, which you're very, very famous for and very well known for. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Mr. Atul Singh, Vice President CSR for Imami Limited, and he's going to talk about community health outreach through ICT-based solutions.
Thank you so much, Mamta. It's been a pleasure to be listening to everyone here. I've got a slightly different perspective because I'm not a health specialist, and I am part of a business house. I'm part of a corporate, and I'm implementing CSR activities for the organization. So I will be taking all your feedback and advice very seriously in terms of how to go about spending CSR in such a manner that it creates maximum impact and value to the beneficiaries. Talking about the healthcare challenges, what we all understand is we know the basic issues of all the challenges, and we can basically categorize them into issues like accessibility of healthcare, affordability of healthcare, availability of a trained manpower, lack of awareness, accountability. These are the various challenges that we all know. And I would like to try and make an attempt to try and link the problems with the solutions through the Atmanirbhar Bharat approach. And you mentioned about Swasth Bharat. Yes. And how can we actually ensure we have a Swasth Bharat? So talking about vibrant economy, there needs to be, like Mrs. Prasad spoke about, the GDP spend. I think it's about 1.3%. And in terms of ranking, India is ranking 187 out of 191 countries in terms of the percentage. Such low is the actual spend on healthcare as far as government spending on GDP is concerned. So definitely, in order to have a so-called quantum jump of the economy, possibly we need to have a quantum jump as far as healthcare expenditure is concerned. Talking about the second pillar of Atmanirbhar Bharat, infrastructure, I think there is a requirement of infrastructure. However, from a CSR perspective, we cannot be building hospitals, we cannot be building primary health centers. So where we can do is try and fill in the gaps, like you very rightly said. And the brick and mortar that is there in the government, system in terms of building hospital, and like Dr. Hira Lal mentioned, prevention is better than cure. Completely agree with you, sir, on that, because through various intervention, we should be having a requirement of less hospital, less doctors, less paramedics, and here we are kind of producing more and more doctors. We are opening more and more hospitals. We are training more and more nurses. And like you very rightly said, the last 8 months has taught us the importance of prevention. So we need to continue with that momentum. The third pillar talks about IT system, and I think this is where I think there's a lot of technology available as far as India is concerned to be able to solve or maybe address some of the healthcare challenges. I was working on various helpline models where just a simple telephone call can actually go about, reducing the MMR and IMR of the country. We can use telemedicine solution. The adoption of technology has been absolutely great in the last 8 months, maybe by not by choice, but by chance. So there's a lot of technology that can be used, and there will be a lot of scope for a virtual hub and spoke model happening. Doctor sitting in one place, patient sitting in the other place. So there's a lot of virtual hub and spoke, which will reduce the requirement of physical brick and mortar in the future. The fourth pillar talks about demography. I think India is a country that has a demographic dividend, and we are at risk of losing that demographic dividend because the working population is not a healthy population. Swasth Bharat ko banana hai, so we need to invest on the health of the working population, which is around 2/3 of the country are the so-called working population. We need to have more of women coming in the workforce. We need to invest more on the reproductive and sexual health, on adolescent health for girls, and get them into the workforce. And the fifth pillar talks about creating demand, and there's a lot of shared value business models that can be adopted in the country to be able to have more of a business model that is designed to solve social sector problems. And these are, some of the solutions through the Atmanirbhar Bharat approach, and talking about, addressing some of the challenges like access and like awareness. And I'll be focusing on just these two because, talking about access, and we can use simple, technology. India is a country which has approximately, around 80% of the Indian population, close to around 90 crore of the Indian population, have access to a simple mobile phone. I was working on a mother and child tracking system, a project of the Government of India, which is about pregnancy management on the phone. And when I talk about technology, I'm not talking about any rocket science technology, and I'm not talking about artificial intelligence, and I'm not talking about machine learning or robotics or expert systems or drone technology. I'm talking about a simple mobile phone which a person has. And 80 to 90% of Indians have access to a simple mobile phone. We can make a call through a call center, talk to them about the health problem. We have enough people in India who don't have a job. This will ensure we have a job for so many people. We can send them voice SMSs. We can send them voice, these SMSs, and make sure that we give them the education. I think someone spoke about the importance of education as far as, health-seeking behavior is concerned, to be able to prevent disease. And we can do so much. And the MCTS system has on record about 16 crore database of pregnant ladies. Telemedicine is a big kind of an area. And once again, COVID has basically taught us, how to use telemedicine. There's a huge, mismatch in terms of the doctor shortage in the country. As per the World Health Organization, India should be having one doctor for every 1,000 population. As per the population of the country, which is 138 crore, India should be having approximately 14 lakh doctors. What's the number of doctors available in the country? Around 11 lakh. And what's the number of practicing doctors? Around 8 to 9 lakhs. So India has a shortfall of 6 lakh doctors. India has a shortfall of 20 lakh nurses. And we can't be, solving, this problem just by having more medical colleges and just by so-called producing more doctors. Telemedicine is the solution, I guess. And when we talk about technology, we talk about technology being used only in the city by the so-called rich. Technology has to be used for the poor, for the people who need it. The whole technology can be used as a bridge to be able to reach out to the people. The connectivity is available. Almost 50 crore Indians already have access to smartphone by 2023. More than 70 to 80 crore Indians will be having a smart phone in their hands. Why can't we leverage that? Why can't we use telemedicine? Why can't we use helplines? Why can't we use simple symptomatic questionnaire for doing disease diagnosis and giving them advice on the phone? So these are some of the various things we can do to provide access. And you can just tell me when I have to finish, and accordingly I'll finish. Otherwise I'll keep on.
No, I think that's fantastic. And you spoke about accessibility and awareness and how to leverage technology basically to kind of work more on those to provide inclusive healthcare. I think that is fantastic. I just want to ask one last question, that if it were, which is that one area in healthcare you feel has been untapped and could create a huge impact if given due attention?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
No, okay, so I'm just saying that which is that one area in healthcare which you feel has been untapped and could create a huge impact if given due attention?
I think of all the A's I spoke about in terms of accessibility, availability, affordability, awareness, one area which we are talking about is the awareness part. Okay, how can we basically have more of CSR being invested into the soft, part of the intervention? The whole responsibility and accountability of healthcare intervention lies with the government in terms of, setting up the health infrastructure. Health doesn't mean just a hospital. Health doesn't mean doctors. And how can corporates play a role in terms of using social marketing? How can corporates play a role in terms of, using digitization and, various online platforms to be able to create awareness? How we can, like Dr. Lal said, focus more on preventive care, promotive care, early identification of disease, and basically, having a reduction on the future burden of disease on the economy. 10%, spent today might save 100, rupees later on. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of health-seeking behavior, in terms of awareness, in terms of education. Look at the example of Kerala. Kerala, is the most educated, state of the country in terms of literacy rate. And there is a direct correlation between Kerala and the health parameters, because the health parameters in Kerala, we are talking about, Kerala has achieved the SDG goal, of, 8, in terms of IMR and also MMR. So, talking about the positive correlation, there has to be a positive correlation as far as education is concerned. When we talk about education, we can start early, we can start from school education and then build on the awareness. Corporates can play a huge role in terms of creating awareness, which is a soft part of the intervention. Let the government focus on hard part, and the corporates can take care of the soft part.
Thanks a lot, Atul. That is a very passionate discussion on the 4 A's, and specifically for awareness and accessibility through technology. Thank you very much. And I know we've really overshot on time, and Pooja is looking at me with saying, stop it. Okay. So I just want to thank each one of you for coming over, for giving your time and your experience and your expertise, and wish you all the best, and see you again next year. And thank you very much. And thank you to the organizers and each one of you and all the people who've been listening to us. We won't be able to address your questions right away, but definitely the backend team of CSR NGO Box is going to address all of your questions. We are, can you please email them to all the panelists so that we can answer them personally and take it from there. So thank you everyone, and thank you very much again.
Thank you so much. Thanks to CSR Box and the whole team. Thank you.